everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's Sophie here, and welcome to my mental health journey series. Mental health is something that I've been dealing with, I think, for a long time without me even knowing. And I'm actually really nervous doing this video because I feel very vulnerable right now. But mental health is such an important topic to talk about online, and as an influencer, and as I've been going through and dealing with my mental health a lot lately, and having seen huge positive changes in myself, I feel like it's something that I want to talk about, I want to share, and also that I'm very passionate about. I've always actually been a very open person. I've always spoken about my personal life with my friends. I've always been very open in terms of talking about a big issue of my life that has kind of made me get help for my mental health. I'm doing this series. Today I'm going to be talking about why I get therapy, but I've got lots of ideas for videos for you guys. But I just want to say first off, I am not trained whatsoever in therapy. I am not licensed. I have no training whatsoever. I just thought it would be a really good thing for me to share my own experience, because mental health is so important right now. I even read a stat today in the Telegraph that 1 in 4 young people are struggling with their mental health since the lockdown and coronavirus. And even that stat makes me so sad that people are struggling, and so many people suffer in silence. So I kind of wanted to create this series to kind of get rid of the stigma that mental health has, and also just show you guys that, it is hard. It's so hard. I've cried so much through, I'm actually getting a bit emotional now talking about it. I cried so much through my experience and my journey. It's so hard. It's not easy whatsoever, but I have to say one thing to you, and it is the best thing I've ever done for myself. So I just want to share my own experience, but I just want to say, I'm not trained or anything. And if you are struggling and it's an emergency, then I have listed some really great numbers below for you to reach out to. So yes, please check out those numbers if you are struggling and you really, really desperately need to talk to somebody. So this video is just going to be purely focused on why I get therapy and the type of therapy I get. So there's lots of different types. Mine is purely counselling. I've not been diagnosed with anything. There's just a reason that I went to counselling, which I will obviously go into further in this video. So I just get counselling, and counselling is literally just a talking therapy. So I sit down with a trained counsellor and I just talk about my feelings, talk about experiences. I've been doing it through the whole of coronavirus, and I just chat. I just talk. Sometimes I feel like I've got nothing to say, but actually at the end of the session, I'm always like, I feel like I got that off my chest, or actually I did have a lot to say. So I do think when you're forced to talk, you will talk. And even if you feel like you don't think you've got anything going on, it's just very interesting that the counsellor will pick up something that you've said and link it to maybe how you were feeling previously on a previous week, or a year before that you might have mentioned. They listen to you and they analyse your emotions and your personality. They just take on board everything that you're saying, and they just know what questions to ask you. And counselling for me just works. It might not work for everybody though, so my experience might not be something that you might need. So I'm just sharing my own experience in the hope that it gets rid of this stigma of mental health online, and gets rid of this kind of you feel like a bit of a failure if you seek help, because that's wrong. Actually, I think you're so brave, and I think it's an amazing thing to do, to say that you need help, because a lot of people struggle with that. So so why I go to therapy. So to put it in a little short sentence, I have never got on with my mum. I'm going to say that out loud. I've never had a great relationship with my mum. To be honest, I've never had a great relationship with my siblings. I've always struggled growing up. I felt like I've never really had a family. I've always felt independent and quite alone, which is quite sad. I feel like this is like a counselling session for me right now. So I've just struggled with families as a whole. Some of you might know my dad passed away 10 years ago. It will be 11 years this year. It's mental. It goes so quickly. Okay, right. I don't even know where to start with this. Okay, let's go. Yeah, so why I go is basically something happened. Right, so I don't even know how to start this. Okay, it's such a long story. So basically, I've struggled with my family, and I have never gotten with my mum over years and years and years. Now, I will go into depth about my childhood in another video because it's actually really interesting, and something that I've kind of experienced is that my childhood has really affected my adult life. And that's something I'm going to talk about in another video and share like examples. But in a nutshell, I've just never ever really felt like I've had a family. My mum and my dad divorced when, God, I don't even know. I must have been like 4 or 5. I have no idea. I was very, very young, maybe 6 or 7. Very, very young when my parents divorced. And my dad basically worked away on oil rigs all of the time. So my mum was just always on her own with us children. I think my dad might have missed Christmas or birthdays at one point. I'm not really sure. But my mum just was on her own, and she didn't want to be on her own anymore, which is totally fair enough. And she left my dad for my stepdad. So my dad kind of had his own life. He, focused on work. We saw him every other weekend. So even from an early age, I had a very broken up family, which I never knew that affected how you'd be when you were older. So from the get-go, I had a bit of a broken family. So it was me, my brother and my sister with my mum, and we lived with her for about a year on our own. Saw my stepdad as and when, because obviously that was my mum's boyfriend at the time, and also kept seeing my dad every other weekend, I think it was. We'd stay around my dad's house. This again actually had a knock-on effect with my grandparents, because my dad's side of the family, grandparents, I wouldn't really see that very often. But my mum's side, obviously, because I was living with my mum, I'd see my mum's side all the time. So naturally, I felt closer to them. And I've always naturally felt closer to my mum's side of the family over my dad's, purely because I never really saw them much when my parents split up. Because naturally, most of the time, you live with your mum. Obviously, that's my experience. I know a lot of people experience things differently. And then, just growing up. So my mum then married my stepdad. We moved in with him. My stepdad has a lot of children. And then my mum actually ended up having 3 children with my stepdad. So I've got 2 half sisters and a half brother. A lot of you probably don't even know this. There's actually 6 of us. So my mum's had 6 children. Lots of siblings. I don't actually really show that much of my personal life online. You guys probably only think I've got 1 sister, because that's kind of who I've kind of been glued to recently, and she's kind of become my best friend now, which is crazy because we used to hate each other when we were younger. But so had a bit of a broken up childhood, and then it's just me and my mum just never got on. I'm not gonna lie, our house was very violent. Our house, you always felt like you had to tread on eggshells around everybody. We were a very physical family. There was a lot of hitting, punching, ripping hair out, you name it, that was us. I feel okay to talk about that, actually, because when I was younger, I actually thought that was normal growing up. And it is normal to some people. That is normal. So don't think that you are not normal whatsoever. That is normal for some families. But then when I went to school, I started realising, not that it wasn't normal, it just wasn't right. And I was a bit embarrassed. I'd talk to my friends and I'd see their parents were still together. How they got treated. Like, I would kind of sit there and be like, I want that. I want to be able to be friends with my mum. I want my mum to care for me. Like, you kind of grow up and you start seeing how other families are, and you start realising your family's not the same and they're a bit different, and you get a bit embarrassed. But after a while, I actually was quite open to talking about it with my friends. And I felt like I've always been quite open. I've always said, if I've had a bit of a physical fight with my sister or my mum, or my mum's had an argument with me or whatever, like I've always spoken to my friends about it. I've always kind of cried to them. It only depends if I'm down that day or they've caught me at a bad time, then I'll be open about it. Or if something has happened. But yeah, I've always been open to my friends, really, especially as I've got older, I think, because I think I've just accepted that is just my life, and I know it's not normal, and it's nice to kind of feel like your friends are there for you, because people at home aren't there for you. You want someone to kind of care for you in a way. But basically, what the key thing to making me go to therapy was about, when was it? So 2 years ago now. It's my sister's birthday, and my mum, I think, got very upset that me and my sister kind of celebrated her birthday together. My sister did actually offer to my mum to celebrate her birthday with her, but it's so much to say about my family, and you're not going to understand. And yeah, but this is just what happened. And basically, there was a falling out around my sister's birthday, and at that point, my mum cut me and my sister out. She decided she didn't want anything to do with us anymore. And so that was actually the third time I have experienced this with my mum. So the first time was when I got chucked out of my house. I mean, do I tell you what I did? I mean, I just chucked a glass of orange juice over my sister, as you do. But my mum chucked me out, and I called my dad. My dad was alive at that point. I called my dad up and said, Mum chucked me out. She doesn't want me to live here anymore. Can I come live with you? And he said, you always have arguments with your mum. Are you sure you want to do this? And I said, yes. Because at that point, I was 18, just about to turn 19. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I cannot live with my mum and it be so volatile in this house. And I just couldn't do it anymore. So I said to my dad, no, I'm going to live with you. So I lived with my dad, and I didn't talk to my mum for about 3 weeks. And it was the hardest 3 weeks. I felt like I had walked away. That's how I felt. It's just this natural kind of bond you have with your parents and your mum. It's just there. It's nature. And so I lived with my dad and his girlfriend for 8 months, I think it was in the end. But yeah, I didn't talk to my mum for 3 weeks. And then we got talking again, because it was my baby brother's first birthday, I think it was. So my mum invited me around because she knew, obviously, loved my baby brother. So I went round and I spoke to everyone. My mum was begging me to come home, and I said, I'm not coming home. I'm not doing it because I feel like me and you are going to have a better relationship with me not living in this house. So I stayed with my dad, and I loved it. Loved living with my dad. I'd never spent that much time with him before. I only ever got to see him on weekends, and at that point I was working at the weekends. So really, I only ever saw him now and then, maybe once or twice a month. So it was really nice. My dad absolutely loved it. However, sadly, he passed away. He died in a motorbike accident. And yeah, at that point, I was left in his house with his girlfriend. And obviously, we did get on well, but it felt awkward. And I didn't want to be there anymore. That was where my dad lived, and I was with my dad, and I couldn't do it. So I had to go home. Had no choice. I went home. So I had to move back in with my mum. But at this point, I'd already applied for university. And I was going in a few months' time. So then I went to uni, and to and fro from home with uni and stuff. And then after uni, I moved in with Robin, and we started living together. And then I stopped, and then I moved home. And then there was another period, there was 3 months that I didn't talk to my mum for, or basically my mum and that whole household. So that would have included all my siblings, apart from my brother, because he moved out at that point. So my 4 siblings, my biological sister, my 2 half-sisters, and my half-brother, and my stepdad, and my mum. So when my mum was cut out, everyone was cut out. That was just the way it was. So I didn't talk to my mum for 3 months. And if I'm honest with you, it was a great 3 months. I had no drama. I was not getting upset. I was not getting angry. I was not getting stressed. Like, it was such a relief. But then on the other side, I've got no dad. I've got no parent. I've got no one to turn to. I'm alone. I've always been very independent, like I've said before, but it's hard because I can see firsthand that death can come just like that. It's a sudden thing. There's nothing you can do about it. Someone can be there and someone can just be gone. So knowing that firsthand and then having to cut my mum out is one of the hardest things I've done. But deep down, I knew it was the right thing to do for myself and my mental health. After 3 months, we started talking again. Then it started going okay again. We started getting along all right. I kept saying to myself, right, I'm just not going to share this. I'm not going to share that. I'm not going to do this, not going to do that. But fast forward to 2 years ago, and my sister's birthday, my mum said, I don't want anything to do with you two anymore. You've really upset me. And I said, that's absolutely fine. Because I got to the point where I was like, that's fine. I'm just going to leave her be, and I'm just going to give her a few months. Maybe she will change her mind. Anyway, after a few months, it was her birthday and Mother's Day, and I sent a card as a bit of a, breaking the ice. And she texted me and said, thanks, but I wish you hadn't bothered. Please don't get in touch with me anymore. I don't want anything to do with you. So I thought, right, that was I tried. That's me now feeling like, because I always think about death. So I think, right, if something did happen to my mum, at least deep down I know I've tried and there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm just going to carry on and I'm going to live my life. And I did. And I had no drama. I loved it. Robin said I was happier in myself. Me and my sister had both been estranged from our mum and the rest of our family. So me and my sister actually, as horrible as that whole situation was and how hard it was, we got along so much better and we've become such good friends now from it. And we honestly hated each other before. So it had its pros and cons, but we get along so much better now and it's amazing. And then basically 6 months into not talking to my mum, I kept looking online and Googling things, narcissistic mother, living with narcissistic mums and their daughters. I kept reading a lot of different things and I thought, actually, my mum's dad had bipolar. So I started thinking, has she got mental health issues? It would explain a lot. So that's actually why I got therapy. I wanted someone to tell me my mum had bipolar or had a personality disorder. I wanted someone to diagnose my mum so I could be like, oh, thank God, I knew something wasn't right. I knew it wasn't me. Because my whole life, I've always felt like it's me, like I've done something wrong to her, like she hates me. What have I done? I've always felt like that. And I just wanted to know why. I just wanted a why, an answer to why. And that is actually why I went to get therapy and why I went to counselling. I got in touch with a local place. I'm going to do a Q&A, therapy Q&A thing, because a lot of you messaged me the other day asking how I went about to find a therapist. I will go into that. This is just, I've got so much to talk about, but obviously you can't cram it all into a small YouTube video. So I got help. And I spoke to someone on the phone and just said, I'm looking for counselling for family issues. I just want to talk to someone about my family, basically. And they put me with this therapist and and that's why I went. And do you know what? I'm not going to lie. The first few sessions, which I have told my therapist this, the first few sessions, I would come home and I would be so annoyed. I'd be like, why isn't she diagnosing my mum? Why isn't she saying that my mum has got issues? But fast forward to today, I now know it's not my mum's fault. She has had a harder life than I have. She's experienced crazy things she's experienced, from growing up to being to even feeling alone and having to divorce my dad. She's been cheated on. She's been bullied when she was younger. She's never got on with her own mum. There's so much more to this situation. And through counselling, I have learned that it's not her fault. She's not meant anything that she's done. And it's so crazy because I have to say, it took me, I didn't know I was going to have this way of thinking, but it took me a year. I think it was just under a year to have this sudden change of mindset that hang on a minute, it's not my mum's fault. Like, my mum has had so much happen to her that must have affected the way she thinks and what she thinks is normal. You know, like one key thing I learnt from counselling, which is not the same for everybody, just personally for me, is that my childhood has affected my adult life. And learning that and actually seeing firsthand and knowing what I'm like in terms of reacting to situations, my personality, what makes me angry, what upsets me, learning all of those triggers, learning where they come from, I can now see my mum and I can see her triggers, and I can see, knowing her background and her life, where that could have come from. And it's made me and my mum have a much better relationship now. So we are talking again, and it's going okay, touch wood. We're getting on a lot better. But I want to do another video about that. So I think I'm going to leave this video here. That's just a rough kind of outline of why I got help, why I sought therapy, why I got counselling. It was actually never for myself. It was purely because I wanted someone to diagnose my mum. But in doing that and in seeking help, I actually figured out that I was the one that needed help after all. It was actually within me. And it was all myself. I learned that I've got so many issues. I've got triggers. And it's come from my childhood and growing up. It's not anybody's fault at all. It's just lines and lines of generations of family dynamics. One family has a certain dynamic. They're going to pass it on to their children, and so on and so on. But I hope I'm breaking the line and breaking that kind of journey by getting help now. And when I have a family, I can have my dynamics of my family will be much different to my childhood, and hopefully I can break the chain. But yeah, I'm going to leave this video here. Please, 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 I do not want my comments to be a place where people judge. This is my own experience, and I am very vulnerable sharing this with you guys. And if anyone feels brave to share their experience below in the comments, then honestly, you are so confident and brave, and I admire you, and you're very inspirational by doing that. A lot of people suffer in silence, and I don't want you guys to suffer in silence. I'm not a therapist, and I don't want to be a therapist, but I would love to be your friend. You know, another reason why I kind of pushed myself to get help was because I had two friends that had experienced different types of therapy before, that I had counselling, and they had come out the other side and felt so much better for it, and they kind of gave me the little push that I needed to seek help. Okay, yes, I wasn't seeking help for myself. I was seeking help because I wanted someone to diagnose my mum. But actually, I'm glad my friends gave me that push, because it made me realise that I actually needed help, and I'm getting help. I'm still getting help, and I feel so much better for it. But yeah, I've got loads of other ideas for videos, guys, but I'm going to love you and leave you here with that. Yeah, please, I want to create a really nice, calm space in the comments below. I don't want anyone to judge anyone. I want it to be super neutral. Nothing is normal. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel like you're a failure. And I really hope my mental health journey can start your mental health journey. Don't push yourself. You'll know when you're ready to get help. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's a very, very long journey for some people, longer than others. Some people might need a few sessions. Some people might want to just keep going. I know I've gone for, it will be 2 years this year, and I even had messages the other day from people that have been doing therapy for 8 years. So yeah, gonna love you and leave you guys. Thanks for listening to my story, and I will see you guys in another video very, very soon. Peace out.